I'm Denise Summers of Enfor Communications. I'm a business storyteller and communications consultant here in Calgary. Today we're joined by Rhonda Macdonald of Suncor, who is a strategic communications and change management professional working at Suncor and driving enterprise-wide digital transformation. So welcome, Rhonda.
Thanks, Denise. It's great to be here.
Yes, thank you for joining us. And so tell me a little bit more about you and about the work that you're doing in Suncor's Transformation Management Office.
Well, I've been in the Transformation Management Office for almost a year now. It was stood up last May, and I've been with Suncor for 9 years in their communications proper department. And we saw a need through this Transformation Management Office in order for us to continue to be relevant as an organization in the industry and also within Canada and beyond. And the opportunity presented itself, so I put my hand up and really found an opportunity to come in and support our digital transformation, how we create value from data and how we're securing our future through digital technology.
Oh, very interesting. And so that's, change management is a fairly unique line of work. And how did you get into that? What's the story behind that?
My formal training is from a communications perspective. I got my communications degree from the University of Calgary. And throughout my career, as I was working through, change just seemed to become, was just a natural part of communications. And as the profession has matured, so has the need for a real focus on change management. So I did get my ProSci certification a number of years ago. And we're really approaching change and communications in a very different way now. It's actually more from a people readiness perspective. So it actually incorporates change, communications, learning, and even an HR component. So we're really maturing in that space. So it's helpful to be able to either be change and communications, or sometimes you need somebody dedicated to each of those disciplines, depending on how big and complex some of the bodies of work are.
Okay. And so can you share a story or an example of what your work looked like at Suncor, an impact you've had with a client there or a team or the people, the employees?
I think one of the biggest things I would say, even more recently, while we've been working kind of on this journey of transformation, transformation can seem very big and overwhelming to people. The word in itself makes people think everything's happening all at once. There's going to be immediate changes tomorrow. What will my world look like, my job look like? So through that change management lens and that communications lens, we've really been focusing on the people, right? And the impact. It's not just the what, the when, the how, and to whom. It's actually, again, the why. Why are we doing anything? And one of the biggest things that we've actually been able to do within Suncor, but even in any of my volunteer organizations or even at home, is really thinking about it from that people first perspective and meet them where they're at. So we actually have been engaging with our employees almost as an ambassador group and getting those who are interested to put up their hand and become part of this early adopters, if you will, and help us co-create. So what we're doing as part of those recommendations is breaking down the walls and the hierarchy where people would traditionally, you work with your senior leaders, and there's always strategy, right? So this does not forego strategy and making the right decisions, but it's how do we, we're thinking about the end user and who we're going to be communicating with, but why wouldn't we engage them along the way so they can help formulate where we're going and not develop something and then present it to them and say, here you are. So right. They're in the kitchen with us and helping us create. And we're seeing a lot more engagement, really looking at building that trust and think about inclusion and diversity. Just think about the minds that are coming around the table from various generations. And I'm seeing a lot of change and a lot of behavior in our culture, I think, is thriving more as a result of that.
Oh, yeah, it must be a very interesting journey to be on. And,
it is.
Yeah. And the journey that we're on right now with COVID, how's that impacted the work that you do and your team and how you work?
Well, I think everybody is learning new ways of working. They're learning where they're most productive. where they're least productive, and we're having conversations about it, and actually real conversations. People across the organization, even in senior roles, are vulnerable. They're showing their human side. I think a lot of our silos and hierarchy have broken down through our Microsoft Teams calls. You know, whether it's, you know, seeing cats walk across screens, whether it's kids crying in the background or breaking in front of a video conference, not realizing they're on camera. And it just, I don't know, it just humanized everybody. And I just find that even though we're working virtually, I feel like we're connecting better. And so those, and you know, it almost seems counterintuitive, but because a lot of times people feel if you don't have that true face-to-face, you can't be as connected or as collaborative. So, and again, it doesn't work for everything. And we are also found that we can accelerate the deployment of certain tools and technology instead of looking at an 18-month or 2-year chartered body of work, you know, that will take a long time to get to people's desks or their desktops. So we quote Winston Churchill quite a bit when we talk about don't waste a good crisis. And so yeah, so we are just, okay, we can do this now. Another learning is it's not going to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's get messy in it, let's experience it, and don't let that stop us from deploying, but let's learn and then improve. Like, so very, very much agile methodology, right? We're iterating. And I like to say it's more about progression than perfection. And that's a mindset that I think a lot of our employees and leaders are taking. Actually, I'm seeing it in Calgary Board of Education. I'm seeing it at the stores. I'm seeing it everywhere, right? So
right.
I think that's really cool learning.
Now, that's great. And so out of this crisis comes some very good, hopefully long-term change in the way that different companies, the culture that's being developed through this pandemic. And so what opportunities do you see for your team and for the work that you do going forward?
Well, so we basically have been doing a re-entry into the work site or into the office, and that has started basically the 1st of June, but it has always been voluntary. It has been something that we people first, right? So we need to, like I said earlier, we need to meet people where they're at, so that it is about what their family needs are, what their medical needs are, what their readiness is to return, right? And so like a lot of organizations, like right now for us, it's voluntary. I did put up my hand and I went back to work on Monday and experienced what that was like. The organization and organizations have set things up so well that feel safe, feel that it is people first. We are working through nuances and also providing feedback on what is or isn't working to help maybe the next wave and the next wave, right? So yeah, I feel very well supported. And I also had a spring in my step when I got to get dressed on Monday, putting on real shoes, maybe with a little bit of a heel, and going out to my car and driving to the office instead of just going to the dining room table. So it's a nice balance. And I think that's what we're going to see coming forward, is the ability to be flexible and allow maybe a hybrid of where you're productive, when you need to be in the office, when you can work from home.
Right. Must have felt a bit surreal going back to work. You've been at home working since what, mid-March or something?
Yeah, March 12th.
Yeah. So yeah, quite a while. And so as an expert in change management, what advice do you have for other team leaders or for for business owners or other people who are working with employees and who are reopening and having to look at a different way of working?
I think, again, meet people where they're at, take the learnings, right? So what is it that has worked well that you want to bring forward? Just because you're back in the office or at a workstation or a desk, don't lose sight of what has been effective and what has made people more productive, and what has also allowed people to really work what I'm calling it a life-work balance as opposed to a work-life balance. So there's just, like I just said, just don't throw everything away, but listen to each other and listen to your employees and talk. allow people to continue to contribute and to co-create. And it's, like I said, for me, it's been invigorating and inspiring to see what actually can be done when we actually work that way.
Right. And so it really sounds like your expertise and your experience in change management is something that's really, really valuable during this time. And is there anything that you'd like to add, or anything that you'd like to express for Calgary going forward, and what you'd like to see?
I think, I'm looking at the back behind you there, what's your story? Continue sharing stories. I think through sharing stories and experiences, people relate, and it builds this momentum of what is possible, not only from a community perspective, I think from a micro and a macro perspective, but we're all part of something bigger, we're stronger together. And I just, the people component is a key criteria. And when you talk about change management, Denise, I always go back to it now, coming back to people readiness. That's actually what change management is. It's people readiness. How are we readying people either to be part of a change, to receive a change, to create a change? And so that, a lot of times when we were actually working through projects, it was more around process and data and technology. And the people component always seemed to be last, right? So if we put people first and truly think about what that human experience is, and allow people to be their best selves and bring their best selves to work, look for ways to continue to make that happen, right? So use COVID, use the experiences to continue to foster that, and it'll be amazing to see what we can create.
Right, and by making them part of the story, and helping and writing the next chapter and so on, as you said earlier, you get a lot more engagement and buy-in from everyone. And so thank you, Rhonda. This has been great, and really appreciate you joining us here today. And so that brings us to the end of this episode. And so thank you to everyone for joining us here on the COVID Chronicles. And Calgary strong, and stay safe and stay healthy.